Let me go Facebook Live here. Okay, we're streaming right now. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bobby Taruc with Keller Williams Premier Properties. With us right now is Christina Cash, also with Keller Williams Infinity office in Naperville, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And our guest today as well is Denise Manning, also with Keller Williams Infinity Plainfield, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm out of Naperville as well.
Oh, you're out of Naperville. Okay. Hey, thank you everyone for joining. We're going to go fast. I'm going to talk fast. I'm very excited about this conversation. This is near and dear to my heart as well. Kind of a quick intro for me. We do Airbnb as well in our home in Warrenville. And then we do have an investment property. Our original intent was an investment property in Florida, in Charlotte County. Most people don't know Port Charlotte, but it's between Sarasota and Fort Myers. So I'm very passionate about this topic, Christina. So thank you for organizing the Facebook group. And also you will have an event this coming Thursday. If you don't mind introducing yourself and describe the Thursday event as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm Christina Cash. Most people call me Chris Cash.
Okay.
I live in Aurora, Illinois, and service what we call the far west suburbs of Chicago. And my short-term rental investment property is in South Haven, Michigan. I am holding I'm going to say it's a crash course on how I got into short-term rental investing, what it takes to find a property, analyze the deal, fund the deal, furnish your space, and be what I call the hostess with the mostest, and make the most 5-star reviews and the most profits in your pocket. And that class will be at Keller Williams Infinity on Thursday, the 28th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Denise, if you could please introduce yourself and what brings you out here.
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Denise Manning. I am also a fellow agent with Keller Williams with these two lovely people. I'm out of the Naperville office, but I live in Orland Park, so I service Southwest Burbs. But I actually am here. I didn't realize I was crashing it. I'm really sorry if I am, but I saw this on Bobby's Facebook feed, and I thought, oh my gosh, what a wonderful opportunity that he's offering to his clients and friends and family to learn about short-term rental opportunities. I myself am interested in learning more from experts. So I know Chris has been killing it with her rental. I think it's completely booked for the summer already. And it was just like 2 months ago she put it up. So I'm here to learn from the best.
Awesome.
It's awesome. Hey, Chris, let's define really quick. What is a short-term rental? I don't think we're all about acronyms and we throw around STRs all the time. Define for us, please. Define for us, please, what an STR is.
I hate acronyms. So a short-term rental is basically, in a nutshell, the opposite of a long-term rental. And a long-term rental is anything over 30 days in length. But in some states, it's over 28 days. By legal terms. So typically investors will buy a single family home, townhome, apartment complex, and rent those out long-term, year leases, 2-year leases. A short-term rental is a house, apartment, condo, all kinds of crazy things now, yurts, tiny houses, tents, Airstreams, and people will rent those under 30 days, primarily in the vacation market sector, but not always. It can be in an urban setting. It can be, like I said, a camping type situation, and they're rented by the day. So more like a hotel.
Thank you, Chris. Now that we've defined that, I think we have a perception in our mind, but now we have a true definition of the term short-term rental. So Chris, help us understand why should be short-term rentals be on the radar on people's financial future or financial planning, or really expanding their different sources of income, and also from a wealth building perspective, why should people consider this?
Well, a couple of reasons. Well, I'm going to say there's a couple of reasons for thinking about it and a couple of reasons why you shouldn't think about it. And I'll get into that in a minute. But a couple of reasons why you should think about it is think about it as possibly an avenue that you could use to purchase a home that will eventually be your retirement home and have it pay for itself, plus bring you an income on top of it. So say you wanted to retire to Florida. You could purchase a condo or house in Florida and start short-term renting it out. And by the time that you may be retirement age or retire early, because you have a piece of property that's now free and clear, and you have earned an income from that investment. Or if you wanted more cash flow than what a long-term investment can bring you. So say, you do own a long-term investment now, and some may be perfectly fine with maybe $200, $500, $800 a month cash flow from that long-term renter. Short-term rental, you can get $200, $500, $800 plus a night instead of a month in rent, which is going to be a lot more cash flow, therefore allowing you to buy another property, pay down that property, pay down your startup costs a lot faster. It's just a faster way to get to the real money in the game. You shouldn't get into short-term rental if you think that it is a 100% passive income. It is not. So you are, in a sense, a small hotel owner at this point when you have bought a short-term rental. So how are you going to market it? How are you going to furnish it? How are you going to put in supplies for your guests? How are you going to take care of not only what would typically be the maintenance of a property, but now you have guests that are coming in every week, every 3 days, every 2 days. That property has to be turned over and cleaned, and lawn meticulous all the time, snow removal. All of that has to be managed. Plus, you're going to have guests that are going to have questions. They're going to be messaging you. You are, in a sense, their little hotel owner. So if that is not something that you're interested in, you need to hire out to have somebody manage that property for you, which a management company for a short-term rental can take anywhere from 20 to 30% off the top of your income, which is a big chunk to give up. Or you can hire people to co-manage your place. And what is involved in co-managing can be anywhere from you pay that person just to manage the online presence and platforms that house is being advertised on, and to answer questions that your guests may have. They typically take a little bit smaller of a cut, anywhere from 8 to 15% of your profits.
Hey, Chris, thank you for that information. This is really helpful. I think people have a mistaken notion that it's pretty passive in terms of income. I want to step back a little bit. There's often a debate, and there's always opposing views around this. If you could please paint a picture of us when someone considers an STR, short-term rental, is the goal equity gain, or is the goal cash flow? Can they go hand in hand, or is it one over the other? What is your mindset around short-term rentals? Between those two can be opposing goals, but they don't have to be.
No, I mean, I look at it for both. But I think that there are a lot of people out there that it just depends on what your life goals are. I think that there are some people right now that have one short-term rental that's it's paying for itself, right? It's paying the mortgage, and it's maybe bringing them $20,000 a year in cash flow. and they're perfectly fine with that. It's a side hustle. It's a great side gig. It's great for a stay-at-home parent. Great for a retiree to have a little extra income, and that's perfectly fine. And then there's some people that, they want much higher cash flow coming in. They're buying luxury properties. And with that kind of cash flow, they're buying more, they're buying more, they're buying more. And that cash flow is coming in at more than six figures a year. And they're able to quit their corporate jobs and focus on, so it just depends on what your life goals are. We know, I'm sure both of us, Bobby, we know people that own one or two rentals, and I have met people that own 100 short-term rentals or more across the world. So it just depends on what your life goals are.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it goes hand in hand, and Denise, please jump in if you have any question for Chris. I think it goes in hand in hand where our tolerance level around risk is. So it truly, one person will not have the exact same goals in essence with another person. So it depends. And I think it goes hand in hand again with the level of risk that we can tolerate.
Right.
So let's talk about risks and rewards really quick. So we talk about rewards. You can have cash flow. You can have tremendous cash flow, which can replace a person's full-time job. There's a lot of work granted around it, and you've alluded to that earlier. Let's talk about the risks shortly. What are the risks that people should be aware of in terms of they dive in or even consider going into short-term rentals? What are the risks that people need to be aware of? Even just high level, don't have to be in details.
Yeah, a couple big risks. One is a lot of cities, townships, counties are putting into place rules and regulations around short-term rentals. So you really need to do your homework. And even if you do your homework, those rules can change at any time in the ballgame. So they could, a city or township could all of a sudden decide to say no more short-term rentals. And maybe you're grandfathered in because you were operating, and maybe you weren't. And they're going to cease and assist you operating as a short-term rental. Then you would have to look at, okay, can I sell that property, or can I turn it into a long-term rental and start renting it out for 30 days or more? That's an option, but it's still a risk. Then you also have oversaturation of markets. And some people's views on this are different than mine, but when you're looking at, say, an Orlando market, around Orlando, there's 37,000 short-term rentals in the Orlando and surrounding market. To me, that's an oversaturation, and you are fighting for competition. You're either dropping price, or you're trying to make your place look more spectacular than the next person's place, therefore putting more money into it. So investing in the right market, so it's not so risky, not so much competition, I think is important. But my level is, it's really not a risk. To me, a piece of real estate is always a piece of real estate. So you can always sell it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest risk, and I don't think anyone was able to foresee it, of course, was COVID.
Yeah.
2020, we had zero booking with our Airbnb. So that's definitely a risk. So
but then there was that huge uptick in 2021 where people surged and went to them because they could work from anywhere. We had that big surge of everybody working from home. So people flocked to Airbnb. I hate calling them Airbnbs because not everybody is on
right,
Airbnb.
Right.
But
right.
I think we all it's almost like calling it a Kleenex. There's Airbnb, there's Verbal, there's booking.com. People book on their own website. But everybody knows what we're talking about when we say Airbnb.
Right.
But people flocked to Airbnbs to work during the pandemic. to just have a change of scenery, a different place to go. You're going to be locked up. Okay, let's go get locked up in Florida somewhere for a little while, or Texas or California. And I think some of that trend never stopped. So there was a big, there were some corporations who decided never to send their workers back to offices. And I see it particularly in younger people who want to be adventurous and go out there and live in a different place all the time because their work is their laptop. But yeah, certainly there's been a decline since then a little bit. And I think partially too, the decline is rises in gas costs and rises in the cost to fly. It's just going to make travel go down overall.
Absolutely. Yep.
And we are, in a sense, in the travel industry. So when the travel industry is hit, we're hit too.
Absolutely.
So I like to do my numbers when I was, and believe me, I researched this for almost 2 years before I bought my first property. I probably overanalyzed it. I like to do a spreadsheet based on the worst case scenario. So whatever the numbers said for a city, even occupancy rate and what the average nightly rate was for an area, I bumped it down. Because I'm like, okay, if I plan for even below what the numbers say, will I be able to make my mortgage and my gas bill, my electric bill, and cover costs?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Chris. Absolutely. Well, you're very conservative in terms of how you plan your financial forecast. So my next question, Chris, is I know you're not a lender, but give us some insight on how people can fund their STR, if you have any idea around that.
Yeah, there's a few different ways. We, for this being, when we purchased this year, it was our first one, my husband and I. So we had enough equity in our current home that we could, at that time, refinance our current home that we live in and take a cash out. And then with that cash out, we got a 10% down second home mortgage, just a traditional Fannie Freddie backed second home loan. There comes some limitations with that second home loan. First of all, we do have to use the property a certain amount of days of the year. I forget what it is now. I think it might be 28 days or something that we have to use the property a year legally. And we use it far more than that. So that's not a problem. And I'm not allowed to put that property into an LLC until after a year. So I'm kind of vulnerable this first year, I feel, of not having the full benefits of having that in an LLC, but it was the least expensive route to go. At that time, the new regulations had not come out with Fannie and Freddie second home mortgage. So my closing costs were not astronomical and my rate was good. Now the rates are higher and there's some padding that Fannie and Freddie have done in there with fees for second home loans, but they're still great. Then there are some loan programs out there for people that if you're buying an existing short-term rental that has a track record of being a rental, that they will give you a loan based on how the performance of that rental has done in the past. Has that rental performed good enough that they can see that it will pay for itself in the mortgage and the property taxes and all of that? And they'll give you a loan just based on that, the performance, past performance. There are some private lending that you can go through, some crowdsource funding now with a lot of other investors that are looking to pool their money. So there's options out there for money besides traditional lending, but typically the banks, like the Chase banks of the world and Bank of America, they are not very short-term rental friendly. They, that would not be my first choice to go to. Smaller banks, even the local banks where you're going to be looking, they want to invest into the community. So if you personally went in like the old fashioned way and went into the local bank that you are going to be buying your property in, they a lot of times are going to be a little bit more lenient because they want their local bank funds to stay local.
Okay.
So even if they weren't maybe traditionally familiar with short-term rental, they'd probably look into it for you and be a little bit of flexibility.
Oh, that's something that I wasn't aware of. Yes, for second property, typically the rates are higher. That was how we were impacted around that in the spring of this year.
Yeah, I just missed it. I just missed the hike, so I was lucky.
Oh, good for you. Hey, Chris, this will be my last question. If someone thinking of Chicago market, all of the festivals within Chicago are coming back, Lollapalooza, etc.
Yeah.
It looks like the market, at least for Airbnb, is coming back, at least for the Chicago and the Chicago burbs, where the benefit for us is that in our home, we're pretty close to the metro station. So we get the people that want to go to the city festivals and just take the metro. But someone who's in the Chicagoland market thinking about purchasing a property mainly for SDR, be it in Oak Park or even in Lincoln Park, what should they be looking at and what should they be considering? You talk about saturation. Tell us more about what other parameters should an investor be looking at?
Well, I would say the number one thing, before you even try to go through the process of calling the city to see whether or not they allow short-term rental in the zone that you're going to be buying in,
Great.
call the HOA, because the HOA of the building that you're thinking of looking at may have rules and regulations around short-term rental. So check there first before you even go step number 2 of finding out what the zoning laws are for the neighborhood which you're purchasing, because Chicago is like many, many, many pockets. There's pockets that allow it and pockets that don't. There's buildings that allow it and buildings that don't. So it's a lot of research in the city when you're looking in the city proper. When you come out a little bit further into the burbs, which I think is kind of an untapped market, if you ask me. So you're smart, Bobby, being in, did you say Warrenville or West Chicago?
Warrenville. Yep.
Warrenville. Because there's, I think, a multiple need out here in the suburbs. One is still, like you said, the houses are close enough that people can hop on the train and still go to the festivals and the museums and things in Chicago. But we also see people that are coming in, to the suburbs to visit family for weddings, and there's not, enough space in possibly their families' homes. We have people who are buying homes and transitioning to a new one and need just a week or two to stay in between when they're moving into a new home or waiting for new construction to finish up. We have traveling nurses that come to this area a lot because we have so many hospitals. Those traveling nurses are looking for furnished houses to stay in the suburbs. So there's lots of opportunity in the suburbs. But again, each of them has their own rules and regulations, and you got to check them all out.
Yep, absolutely. So much opportunities. Denise, I hope this helps you at least have a better picture of what the potential is for SDRs. I think, Chris, we're going to end right here. So much more to talk about. Hopefully we'll, well, I'm confident I'm going to learn something really new, more than one thing, learn something new from you this coming Thursday.
I learn new things every week in this business. It's a blast. And become very passionate about it.
Yep, absolutely. We'll put all of our contact information in the description of this video. We're going to end right here. I know I have a million other questions that I wanted to ask you, Chris, but maybe I'll ask that in our class at the Infinity office in Naperville this coming Thursday, I believe, or the following Thursday?
28th.
28th, okay. Denise, we hope to see you as well at the Infinity office.
Absolutely. Thanks for having this. It's awesome.
Sure. We'll connect again.
Yep.
Absolutely. Again, my name is Bobby Taruc. With us is Christina Cash. and Denise Manning. All of our contact information, again, will be in the description of the video. We're going to end right here. Hope everyone has a great day. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you for having us, Bobby.
Okay, bye-bye for now.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.